Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome. My mic is not muted, so we're clear. We are here for episode 14 of Theory Forge Friday, and we are very excited to have a very certified, special, awesome guest, Noodle Cat. She's going to be joining us, and of course we have the usual lineup of cool cats. So why don't we go ahead with Sog? You can go ahead and we'll just go around and introduce everybody.
Yay, Star Wars teaser! Yay, stupid lightsaber. Alright. Hey, I'm Sog. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you guys. I have no idea what order we're in today, so whoever's next, go next.
Noodle Cat.
I think that's me. Hi guys. I think most of you know me, but hi. I have returned from the land of new job.
It's a dangerous place.
Yeah, it is a dangerous place. Online training. It's fun.
Noodle, do you want to tell us a little bit about your what you've done in Landmark? Because obviously Noodle Cat, for those of you guys who don't know, Noodle Cat does have a history in Landmark.
I have a long history in Landmark.
Long history in Landmark. Lots of good stuff.
I've been around since pretty much day one alpha, and I'm one of the winners for the Landmarks of Landmark contest. Haven't done too much with the contest since then, but I'm slowly getting back into Landmark because just a couple of the optimization patches kind of killed my game. So, I'm actually gonna look at this new thing they have with the building runes for the caves and stuff. So
Poor little
that's
T.
pretty much what I do is I build and I fight people when I can.
Awesome. And of course you do occasional Twitch streaming, and you have your Twitter. So of course you guys need to make sure you go follow Noodle Cat on Twitter. And then we have the beautiful, sexy Velux over there.
Yes. 10-ton Hammer. You guys are familiar with me. I have a new column starting up. It'll be next. It should be 2 or 3 times a week. I'll be posting something in it on 10-ton Hammer. So it should be pretty fun. And that is kind of the new thing for me. Other than that, just a few things here and there on EQ Hammer right now. But yeah, you guys are familiar with me and him too.
Yep, actually, Velix was on live feature rant this week. It was pretty awesome. I wasn't sure if we were gonna go for just an hour or so because there wasn't as much of an update, and then it turned out it's oh no, Velix has got to get going. It's way overtime. So we had a great time. It was a great episode. Really good discussion. Kremchek was also on that episode again. He's been on for a couple of weeks there. You can probably see a little bit more of him for a little bit. Yeah, other than that, content and creations has been going really well. I've kind of split the deal now. I'm doing half ogre stuff and half focus on the team ups, and there's some amazing stuff coming from both fronts there. So I've just been really enjoying it. Some really nice stuff. Now I know Sog would say, no, it's not amazing. It's still got a little ways to go before the tools can truly make something beautiful.
The ogre stuff has been right. This new round, there's truly some amazing stuff. In the past, I stand by what I've said that you speak too soon. Stop speaking too soon. Right now, there's some good stuff out there. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe.
Well, to be fair, I mean, we can talk about this a bit. I think that a big issue before was that we were doing some of the more difficult races. Dark Elves and Karen. They have there's a lot of curvature, and it's not that curvature is hard, but it takes a lot of time, and the tools aren't really set up to make that easy. With all of the I'm Geo, by the way. You already, it's on my channel, whatever. So I guess the ogres they have a much more sort of just. I don't want to say plain because that sounds offensive. Just a much more geometric. Thanks for the word there. Geometric build, and I think that because of that, it's allowing people to really express their creativity as opposed to be hindered by the tools.
That's why I was Team Dwarf.
Yeah. No, totally.
Yeah,
Me too.
I like a lot of what I've seen out of the Ogre Workshop so far. It's been pretty cool to see because it's kind of getting back. I know the Karen, there was a ton of great builds in there, but it was so detail oriented. There was so many different prop related things and micro voxeling and doing all that crazy stuff. Whereas the Ogre build's been a lot of just people expressing, their layout and their structure and coming up with really cool ways to design the buildings there. The only really detailed thing that I'm seeing that's like really crazy people are doing, I mean, there's a lot of great stuff, but the biggest thing is people making their custom brickwork. And I know like it was a few months ago, Bride started doing stuff like that. I think he was one of the pioneers in creating textures with a combination of etching and other things. And that's kind of almost become the standard now for ogres. I know even on the last workshop show or the previous one, they said, if you can do your own texture like that, your own brickwork, do it, because that's something that they're probably going to do in all the future stuff.
Actually, I would say going back as far as August, I remember seeing Fugazi doing some of the custom roofs and custom work on some of the Karen builds. So,
I
yeah,
thought roofing was
that's
the first.
yeah,
He did
it's
individual shingles for his first Karen roof.
Yep.
yep,
Yeah, that's
yep.
right.
Some of that stuff, it's an elaboration on skills that have gone all the way back to Alpha that Fugazi and quite a few other people have been doing very well. But August isn't the earliest that I saw that kind of stuff. I think
Yeah, it's been before
it was
that.
a continued progression on some of the same skill sets.
Yep.
Yeah, we see it around for sure. But
Yeah,
I mean,
I guess all I'm saying is really like, even though it's techniques that have been used for a long time, people are really now like taking that to, the level of making their own 3D textures in game, which was, I think that's relatively new, not super new, but a few months. And now, but it's crazy because like even though that was like basically a really advanced technique, like that's becoming something they want to see on all the builds if possible. They're not like saying builds, that don't have that won't be good, but it's definitely something they're pushing, and I'm sure their internal teams are going to be doing that type of stuff, having these 3D textures for the stuff we're going to see in EverQuest next. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with the engine. I love what I'm seeing.
See evolution into 3D textures, because like back in early beta, we were all making individual tiles, individual bricks and stuff using different techniques of inlays and microvoxels and antivoxels, all the other different types of stuff. But now people have, with the roaming vectors and all the other things that they've added in, can now take that over into making something that's actually 3D instead of just like a 2D illusion.
A little quick thing I want to say real quick, and I don't know if there's any developers in chat here, or we'll pass this along later, but I noticed we're missing a very key texture for the project that's going on right now. The Tundra Stone, the Tundra Stone in the icy caves, is actually a missing texture. If you try to select it with the material selector, we can't actually use it. So you actually have to fake it with a bunch of other materials instead of being able to use the legit stuff that you're actually gonna kind of build it in and see it with. So I'm not really sure how we're supposed to resolve that right now. I guess I need to take a moment and hit up like Felgon or someone. Hey, we need this. But it's I started working on some
Tweet
stuff.
Rosie.
Yeah. Okay, Rosie. Good one. Yeah.
Rosie's the art director person, so she'd probably be the best one to her, and probably
Yeah.
Felgon.
Yeah, Felgon's the one who rescaled our materials for us, or the textures to match the voxels rather. So he might have an idea of what's going on there. Oh, poor Sog. Is that
I'm gonna
It's-
try not to scream. Hold
you
on
know-
one second, guys.
Sog looking at Skype here? It looks like the cat is starting to make you sneeze because you're in proximity.
If
Cat allergy.
my spidey sense is like, I know if a cat's in the room, and I know I'm like,
No, he was
instead of just
trying
like
to
tingling
maul
in
me.
the back of my head, it's like, Choo! Yeah, no,
and then
I think
Shark
it's-
Cat comes in.
Shark Cat?
I
Shark
have
Cat,
no
because
idea.
he was stalking me. He was doing. I needed like the Jaws music in the background because he just does that slow thing where he comes in. Just
You'll get to know
So-
Noodle Cat's cat by the end of the night, I'm guessing.
Yeah, definitely.
Griffin. Yeah. Griffin's a 13-year-old, very grumpy cat.
The things that have gone on in the last week with Landmark and EQ Next are not that much, and rightly so. People deserve a break, and I'm more than happy to.
Hey, we got cave props.
Hmm?
Yeah.
We got cave props. I've been waiting for the cave props since
We
the caves
did
came out.
get cave props, but there hasn't been a whole lot of chatter, a whole lot of
No.
big event going on. But one of the conversations going on in the forums has been the if there were one thing you were thankful for and one thing that you wished for, what would they be? So, Little Cat, you are our guest. What's on your, what would those two things be for you?
Well, I think one of the main things that I'm thankful for that SOE has done, it's not necessarily a particular thing in Landmark, but I really appreciate how much they do care about their artists. And while all of the stuff that we make is owned by SOE, I mean, Sony owns it, it's not ours, but they do place a large respect on our intellectual property and doing things like the voxel vision to safeguard that. And I really appreciate that because it means to me that they kind of really do care about people, maintaining that they created something. I mean, obviously we can't take it off the program and sell it somewhere else or something like that, but to me that's really big. And I guess for something that I'd wish, which I know is not probably possible at all, but I would really, really, really love adjustment tools for the textures, like kind of like you see in any basic imaging program. So like change the brightness or the hue or the color or any of that kind of stuff. I wish they could put that in there. I know it's probably too much, but as an artist, that's something that I would really love.
It would basically be them giving us the ability to affect layers other than just the material pattern itself and all the properties of it, but then fine-tuning like just one specific layer of it, like the bump mapping, for example, to smooth something out or give
I just
something
want it
some
for
depth.
the color. I mean, I think the color is probably the easiest thing that they could do. That's all I want for it. Because, like, I understand they probably don't want us messing with things like the brightness and the different highlights and shadows and stuff, because those are there for a reason. You start adjusting the shadows, you start adjusting, people's performance and stuff like that. So, but I would just want just the color layer.
Yeah, that
Maybe
makes
even
sense.
just in like an editor or something like that.
Even if they did something like that for like specific materials, like your cloths or different things that would naturally come in different colors, woods even, because you can stain and paint woods, things like that would be really cool if they did. Stucco too.
What do you guys think the
Right.
probability of this kind of thing happening is with not just, let's say, the color, but I mean in general with this kind of like really getting into the technical side of manipulating the textures and whatnot? What do you guys think the probability is?
Eventually,
Well, they can.
100%.
Yeah.
It's 100%. The time frame is the issue.
The other thing is they can actually have 65,000 materials, so they can have a lot of variations of one material, and it doesn't really matter. Like they can have 20 variations, 50 variations of stucco with different durations of wear and tear for the different colors and all that stuff, and it wouldn't even put a dent in that 65,000.
I mean,
I
you don't
think-
need to have infinite sliders like you do in Photoshop either. Just something that has maybe like 10 or 15 different gradations of like brightness or darkness or contrast or whatever. So you could, take it this way or that way or whatever. So you don't necessarily need to have the full slider, which would then eventually, with everyone building different things, having slightly different ones, you probably would hit that 65,000 pretty quickly.
I
think
agree
that-
with.
I still think it's in the 100% yes, it will come category. Unless Landmark gets scrapped as a project as a whole. If they're going to keep developing Landmark,
Well, I guess the reason I ask is because as we approach the closed game loop, whatever that means, we start taking Landmark away from it being and I hate to say this because I know a lot of people are not excited about this, but they're taking it away from being this more like open world building game, and they're trying to turn it more into some sort of like whatever it is. I don't know what it is, what it's going to be like, but there's going to be more to the game than just editing and creating.
It's your sandbox.
Sandbox MMO, yeah.
So okay, so they'll make a sandbox, but that I guess to me the reason that I ask is because I feel like at some point they're going to say we want to cut down on the amount of we need to have a point where we don't cross to give you guys the ability to edit. You know, there has to be at some point where immersion can meet with customization, and I just am wondering. You know, I mean, I'm curious. Not that I'm wondering. I'm just curious as what they're going to do and how they're going to approach this dilemma that's coming up.
I think that
see
line
it.
will be outside modding, like what you can do in Minecraft, where you can import your own textures and things. I think that's probably the line that they won't cross, and they won't give us infinite amounts of things. And I think all of this stuff will be done later on too, like when we get the individual voxel editor and stuff, versus right now, because they do need the rest of the core systems in first. I mean, I'm looking at years down the line when it comes to Landmark and other games. I mean, you look at EQ, it's 20 expansions in. I mean, I don't think they'll stop developing
And that's
anything
an
unless the
interesting
game really
concept.
does flop. Because if the game really flops, then yeah, I mean, it won't be worth their time and their effort.
I'm pretty sure they also plan to make other games off of the Landmark, the Voxel Forge Light engine, essentially. And Landmark is basically the prototype for doing any of that sort of stuff. So I have a feeling they're going to keep using and iterating on it, and basically using us as a giant user tester base, as well as being able to make content for them for all of the games that they make on the Voxel Forge Light engine. Now, the other thing is we'll potentially be getting a lot more features once they have the mesh features built in. Once you'll be able to convert voxels to mesh and then do further deformations on them, be able to scale them down, potentially be able to destroy parts of them or do finer manipulations than you normally could with voxels. That's the sort of stuff I'm really excited for, especially because that's essentially how we're going to be able to probably make our own props and our own vehicles that we can drive around with.
Yeah, all that stuff we know is desired, and we know that everything on that list has either already been done in another game or is present in Miguel's build of Voxel Farms engine, just not integrated into Landmark yet. I think that I think the key is if I were to say, going back to the original question of what am I thankful for and what would I wish for, I'm thankful for, and I have moments of kind of kicking myself for it, really being let in so early. I am thankful that I got my hands on, even though I was able to I had to pay for it, I got my hands on the earliest set of tools. I was allowed to really play around when nobody was doing anything but just playing around with the tools. Yeah, and that was from the developer inside of me, that I kind of have that personality. It was great. But then what do I wish for? I want a design mode. All of the features that we talk about, like we want, like moving vehicles and like textures, all of these things that are done in other games are done in a separate design mode outside of the open world play. And that's what I think. And that, I don't even necessarily want to be hugely involved in using that. I want to be playing the game. But my wish is for a migration from this idea of we should be able to do all the building and changing in the open world to instancing that, but keeping the door open to friends with teleport to friend if in instance, If friends in an instance, right click, teleport to friend. When you leave that, you go right back where you were in the world, just like a WoW dungeon finder. Yeah.
Kind of like the garrisons they just put into WoW.
Yeah.
Where you can, if you're partied with someone, you can click on their name and go, visit so and so's dungeon, or not dungeon, but garrison. I mean, obviously it's not
Yeah.
creative building, but it's Facebook style building.
That's
But
funny.
to me, that's the next step of being able to truly open creative opportunities. That if the building is designed to be done in world, we're only going to see more limitation. We're not going to see more opening up. And I believe that the right business plan is to open up creativity. And that's where they're going to make money. That's where they're going to attract people. So, from my perspective, the best way to open up creativity is to give people instanced creative zones, and I hope that it comes. That's my big wish. Who's next?
You can go with Val.
Or
Yeah, I would just want on the end of years, I want to say my thought is that, we'll see this type of stuff that everybody's talking about in the form of other islands or other worlds with alternate rules, different, things like that in the future, probably after EverQuest Next, maybe long after EverQuest Next. I don't know how soon they'll realize that, they need to do that, because I totally agree that's something that needs to be done. But as far as my, thankful and wish things, I'm so thankful for the return to story. It's not so much with Landmark because, it's more of a open-ended sandbox game, but for EverQuest Next, it's supposed to be a themed game in a world with lore. They've really, pulled out all the stops as far as making story matter and be relevant to your every minute, every second gameplay. Everything you're doing with the new story bricks is relevant to the story of your character, which is really cool. That's, pays a tribute to the tabletop games of old, before Dungeons and Dragons got weighed down with tons of rules and stuff. It's this storytelling format that was really popular, in MUDs, online, and different things like that, online role-playing chat rooms. I love that kind of stuff. So that's my big, feature I love about EverQuest Next. And then as far as a big wish, that's a bit harder. I really enjoy, the realism that can come in real life, with there's good and bad to it. So I'm all for an open world PvP server in EverQuest Next where everybody is treated like any other NPC that you can interact with and kill or help or aid in any format, and just seeing what happens in that situation. I'm for. I don't know why, but I know a lot of people don't like that, but I would love to play in one of those and see what happens.
My heart is fluttering at the thought, Val. I would love to gank some people all day, every day.
I think Landmark's the best format for that, though.
I think so
because
too.
you don't have to pay to switch servers like you do in WoW or Final Fantasy or anything. You can just go, oh, I don't feel like PvPing in a world today. I'm just going to go back to my normal world.
Yeah. I actually really wished they had done that with PlanetSide 2, that you just create the characters, you create one for each faction, you play on whatever server you want to, basically, and just have that be that. I thought that would have been a lot easier, so that way, they. I know a lot of people complained about, server loyalty and stuff like that, and that was
That's why
an
Landmark's
issue.
great, because we don't really have server loyalty.
Exactly.
There are people who like their ones like Courage and Serenity, some of the original ones, but we don't have that loyalty like that. I'm from Cenarius and WoW, we don't have people who are so connected to it.
It doesn't make sense to, because there's nothing that makes any island or any server or anything any better than the other. Even the builds on it's so what? So you can play around and take pretty pictures there. If that's all you're looking to do in Landmark, awesome, that island's better for you. Otherwise, it's just at this point, whether you're tier 1, 2, 3, or 4, if you're trying to harvest or trying to look around for a place to fight, or it's
only loyalty is your ping.
Yeah, basically. No, I'll go to a European server. I want to fight Tobran 1v1. Where's he at? Is he in chat here?
He's probably here somewhere. He's always here when somebody wants to fight.
So
he can talk crap and then not fight.
Yeah.
But the potential I see in EverQuest Next, as far as having open world PvP, I do see your guys' points. It would be a great place to test it in Landmark, and probably include it in Landmark in that way. But the thing that makes it possible in EverQuest Next in a different way than other MMOs is they have the mechanics and systems in place, you know, with their concept for story bricks. If it works out that way, you have the ability to give really harsh negative penalties to people that want to open world PvP somebody who doesn't deserve to be killed. Like somebody that has good faction rating with all the good folks, if you just go kill them, you know, they have the ability now with story bricks to give you really negative consequences that all the NPCs in the world are gonna, you know, give you a lot of hell for, and you might not be able to even come into towns during the day or buy from any merchants during the day. You'd have to deal with shady guys that are gonna rip you off. Things like that. It's just, there's such a whole nother world that gets opened up because of story bricks for doing something like that, where you can have players competing against each other, where if people want to do, you know, trollish or griefing things, they're going to have serious consequences that come along with it, you know, and they might enjoy that. They might enjoy killing people and then being, you know, terribly put off, but, you know, it's going to put them at a huge disadvantage, and you're going to be able to, you know, progress past them maybe, and hopefully, you know, gather the strength in numbers, or NPCs maybe even to help you. They've talked about having NPCs as kind of like soldiers for you. So
And I think that's the coolest thing that I would love to see, because to me, like what we're talking about here, like to me, by taking away open world PvP, you take away a large part of the story and like the realism that exists in that world, because it just doesn't. It seems more like a game, like a computer, or like a preset rule when you just can't go openly do things that make sense. Like, I want to hit that guy with a sword, I should be able to. But, you know, to what you just said about soldiers, I think that there are ways that they can make open world PvP work with even the people who are, like, you know, reserved about that kind of thing. You know, like you said, put soldiers all over the place. Make it so that there's a lot of NPCs, and like you said, if you attack somebody who's, like, you know, highly exalted with the faction, or even just, you know, you attack somebody for no reason, those NPCs can react, can get into, you know, and maybe they can be super, like, one-shot you or something like that, you know, and so, or maybe not that, but you know what I'm trying to say, put it in a point where you don't want to mess with people randomly. There's going to be a time and a place for PvP out in the open world. Maybe there will be large, like, battle, like, places like big plains or a mountaintop where there's like a crater, or, you know, things that inspire the ability to have open world PvP, and like are almost like meeting points or choke points for this kind of stuff. But then at the same time, make it so that it exists everywhere else, but make it risks. I think that's a cool way that they can.
I think
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you, Joe.
No, go ahead. I'm
I think
finished.
one thing we've been missing are NPC opponents that are valid. So we have this feeling that we should be able to walk through enemy territory like it's nothing. Like, whatever, we'll just kill stuff, you know? And then all of a sudden you run into a player and they kill you. Like, I got griefed! I got griefed 30 miles inside enemy territory. You know, like, what is this crap? Who did that?
Get on my mountain, ride through all the mobs.
DDoS coming your way, man. You know, you must be inside your own territory. No, there needs to be a bridging the difference between player character and non-player character goes further to making to making the feeling of PvP and griefing less relevant. Right
I like
now,
it.
people are used to existing in worlds where they're the god. In EQ Next, you're going to be a person in the world. In Final Fantasy XI, you were a person in the world. You were not a god in that world. And it's a dangerous world. And you could die, and there are consequences. And I don't mean permadeath, I don't mean hardcore consequences, but like, you don't want to cross enemy lines. Like, if you're going to cross enemy lines, you want to make sure you have not only a player character backup, but a non-player character backup, because you're performing an invasion. And if that's the case, then if your invasion fails and you die, well, at least you tried. You didn't get griefed. You know?
Yeah, the other big difference too, along that line, that is going to matter for EverQuest Next, is having this, without the power creep of having this vertical progression as far as levels go. There'll still be depth into classes where you can unlock better abilities, but for the most part, the limited amount of abilities that you can have active in combat at one time means that it's less about a gained power thing where you're basically weighing what you've accomplished versus another. It's really about the skill of combat, your tactics, your strategy, and then numbers. Numbers play a big part. So like Sog was saying, you cross enemy lines, that's actually a lot more dangerous now. You can't go into a level 50 zone as a 90 and just wade right through it. You're going to be even level, and the numbers are going to be a huge disadvantage to you. So I think that will help balance it out too. So it's definitely interesting. I'm more curious to see, or most curious to see, what they do with that in this game, just because of the the core system mechanics that are different, that make it a world of difference between any other MMO that's out there. Like that's probably why they're so quiet about it and so unwilling to talk, because they have the ability to do really unique things with it that no game has done. I mean, like Terra brought skill-based combat, but EQ Next has way more potential, and I wish they would talk about it.
Yeah.
I wonder how aggro is going to work with NPCs in EverQuest Next. If it's going to be traditional radius, you're this power, they're this power, they'll sniff you from this far, they'll chase you this far. We obviously know that's not going to be the case, but how is it going to work? Is it going to be more of a levels of threat sort of thing? An orc sees you in the distance, they maybe take note of it but don't really do much about it. You come closer to them, or maybe they come a little closer to investigate to see if you're part of a trading pack that they're hunting or maybe trying to meet with. So maybe they approach you a little bit, maybe you approach them a little bit further. If you've got your weapon out, if they've got their weapon out, maybe conditions are a little bit different as well. And really it's one of those things where instead of it just being fighting the NPC because they're an enemy NPC and you're there and you've got close enough to them, that it's instead like a real matter of like pacing and actually having tactics and strategy. Like, while that orc sees you, they don't see your buddy stealthing around to the side, so when the orc actually comes close enough, your buddy can identify and then either ambush them or hold back. So there's a lot of that sort of stuff. I'm really hoping we'll actually see with the new Storybrick system, that we'll actually see intelligent engagement of the NPCs instead of just this formulaic stuff that we've seen for 15 years.
To talk on that, hold on real quick, I want to say something about the emotion, because you brought up, I love you guys. I got to say, I want to talk about, you said intelligent AI, and I actually want to see intelligent AI, but I also want to see emotional AI. I want to see a warrior, like an NPC, on paper it says, well, that's a mage, I need to attack the mage, but I want to see the reason that it attacks the warrior, because the warrior actually pisses it off. It does something that causes that NPC to feel, and that is where that's where AI gets beautiful. It becomes a beautiful thing, and how I think that in this game, because of their desires, that's going to be a really interesting play for the tank. How do you, instead of making it just I shout and he's mad at me, like, how do you manipulate the opponent and manipulate his emotions and his desires to make him want to attack you, instead of it just being like fuck you button,
Anything
That's
but
an
pulling
interesting
one of them and the other one keeps talking to its friend.
Sorry.
That stuff's terrible.
Go ahead, Sog. It's all you,
We've
buddy.
all seen it. Wow,
Well, we got a little message from Cyan OCD here in chat that said, you put 200 hours of FaceTime into your character, then some group ganks you out of existence. You might consider calling a suicide hotline. Now, one of the things that I think needs to be present in a game is the feeling is if Neuro leads a group of whatever faction he's supporting right now into a territory, and I don't foresee it, and I'm not ready for it, and I get overrun and I die, that doesn't mean I got ganked and I got cheated and I lost everything. it means that somebody did something better than I did. If
I mean, you got rolled by the cat pack.
yeah, that's right. I got rolled. And I did. And then there needs to be a way that I can come back and a way that I can carry on knowledge. Not like some of the old MUDs where if you talked about how you died or where you died or when you died, you got reported and you got banned. It's like that was a different character. You are not allowed to say that.
Wow.
I know Neuro killed you in wherever, Greater Fey, you know. I know you died at G Fey, that did happen, but because you said that to other people as your new character, you're banned for life. You know, there needs to be a way to carry on knowledge, player to player, and the Rose song will help with that too, and help to recreate that. But I should never feel like if somebody on the other side does something intelligent and pushes at the right time and drives something in my direction and I get caught up and I'm collateral damage or whatever, I should never feel like I got ganked. No, that should be an accepted part of the game.
That should be more of like, well, there was nothing I really could have done about that.
Emotion tends to hinder logic.
But that has to be
It's like
that
Leagues when
has
you
to
die
be okay.
1v5 and you just sit there and go, well,
I got ganked.
I deserved that.
Well, most people don't say that, Noodle, but that's good that you do say that.
And you know, the big thing is this kind of stuff should generally be opt-in by at least having
Yeah.
a certain rule set saying, hey, this is open world PvP, or having some type of, you know, clearly defined. I mean, like Rose Song telling you that this is a very bad place to be. You know, there's a lot of ways that they can do it to where it's totally opt-in. You know, as far as I'm choosing to be somewhere where I know this stuff is possible. So nobody can blame it on anybody but themselves, their own choices, and not being skilled enough to stop it or whatever.
Yeah, it's a good topic. But hey, Neuro, I know we didn't get to you yet on what you're thankful for and your wishes.
Yeah, so I've got the cliche one about the openness of development. Now, I come from a little bit of a different perspective. I know a lot of folks, have played and checked out some indie games here and there. I know Noodlecat was doing a lot of that with Who's Gaming Now as well for a little bit. And, for me, I've been playing indie games all year. I had a show, Procedural Powerhouses, where I checked out all sorts of procedural games, not just sandboxes, but really a little bit of this and that. And I've been really playing and kind of watching the process of development for games for years. Warframe was a game that I was following really closely last year, along with PlanetSide 2, even a year before that came out, until maybe about 6 months ago when I started putting more of my focus into Landmark. By 6 months ago, I mean January, actually. But just how well they've really been able to communicate the process and to, at the same time, be chill about it. I've seen a lot of developers, big and small, freak out and just like lash out at their community or do things that, are not, genuinely the best interest of the community because they're just trying to find some way to deal with them or try to, punish the masses for the actions of the few or something like that. And they haven't done any real stupid stuff like that at all. They've been doing a really good job with the process, not only making it something that's really really agreeable for everybody who's interested, and a pretty safe and comfortable space to work with to be able to do creative stuff or work on a little bit of PvP and just kind of try it out for the game, but also to really be able to voice our opinions and be able to have them actually respond. I know it was like, kind of extreme conditions. Not everybody gets to go into E3, but being able to finally track down Felgon and say, hey, we need to get the materials rescaled. And he's like, what? I didn't know they didn't scale it properly. And, within a few weeks, all the materials were rescaled, all the rivets fit on the voxels properly and everything, and building has since looked ever so much better. That was a quick change. He jumped right on it, and I really appreciate that they've been able to help us out like that and be able to have potentially really quick turnaround on some of the issues that have come up. So that's one of the things, coming from a developing background, coming from the back being a fan, essentially being media now, having a lot of different angles looking at it. They've just done a great job all around. I know a lot of people haven't necessarily been happy with the progress of things, or when things have been implemented, or how they've been implemented. I've worked on projects a lot of times, or multiple times in the past, and I've seen a lot of projects through from beginning to end from kind of that outsider's perspective, and they've been doing a great job getting the content in. It's really hard to make a schedule and expect everything to go along with that schedule. The stuff that we're getting now in December, they were hoping to have in July, and if everything was able to be implemented smoothly and easily, no bugs, no issues or anything, yeah, all that stuff would have been in July, and we would have been a lot further along. But developing a game is not an exact science, and but beyond that, they've actually got basically new technology. There's, they're leveraging voxel farm. There's another alternate voxel form engine that My Dream is using. It's actually the one of the lead programmers on that is the Mark Davis is the one who created voxel form. So there's those, and then there's a few other voxel based technologies, but they're not really like communicating back and forth. They don't really have each other to rely upon for a model for an archetype for how to do these things. My Dream actually beat Landmark by a month, essentially, getting mobs in that can path on voxels and objects. But it's not something that I'm going to say like, wow, they're so much better than Landmark. They're different projects, but they've both got this thing where they can't really rely on other projects that existed before for the greater knowledge of how to make it perfect, and how to get everything all in place and all set up. Yes, Sog. So go ahead.
I wanted to jump in on the back of that too. Like, as being somebody who, for writing for EQ Hammer and stuff, I've been watching every workshop show, and not as somebody who's been, a participant that's going there, that's trying to get feedback and all that. I've just been like a third-party observer watching, this thing progress, and seeing, Rosie and Jeff get better weekly at, giving feedback, critiquing, and progressing the format of the show, has gone over time. It's gotten better. The whole process has gotten a lot better. The way they've done things in the forums got more organized. It's kind of a testament to the, level of detail and the care that they're putting into what the community is, investing time in. They're helping them make EverQuest Next better, and you can clearly see them, that they appreciate that a lot, and that they're going to as many lengths as they possibly can, to accommodate the players that are working on these things. And it's been a really cool process to watch, as a kind of an outside viewer who hasn't really been building, but, just watching, all the people in the chat and watching the feedback has been really cool to see, because this whole thing is, like Neuro was saying, it's a huge experiment for them, this open development, especially this early on. I don't think it's been said enough times. Maybe it has, it needs to be said again, but they opened us up and let us into alpha, the alpha client, when it was probably like way earlier than any other alpha would be considered an alpha. It was like a working prototype is almost what it was when we got in. So I mean, it's really crazy, and they've done a good job, trying to manage our expectations. They've made some mistakes, as far as titling things or the way they've announced things, but there's no operating timeline that they can really, plan off of. So it's been good. It's been rough, but it's been a good effort on both sides, the players and the developers.
So Geo, you're the last one to answer this question, and it could potentially take up the entire time before Q&A.
Actually, that was just the thing that I'm thankful for. I didn't actually say what I'm wishing for yet.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Neuro.
So
I'm
the
sure there's
ability,
a list.
Yeah, it's actually particularly. I can sum up the list in one kind of concise
I only
thing.
want one item. I don't want a list. We don't need. We're not asking.
Dude,
for
Santa
a
Claus
list.
is coming to town. Somebody's got to bring Nero his wishes. You know what I mean?
We need to give Noodle Cat an opportunity to talk a little bit more.
It's okay. I'm sure people have heard me yap enough.
No, we'll definitely
now.
get some more roundtable things in a moment here, but it's basically the ability to create really customized mods. There was a discussion earlier about the idea of creating classes and item balance and stuff. I think Zoology had posted that, and it's a great idea. It's something I've basically asked for since the very first live feature rant, going way back before the first episode of Landmark Live, before we were actually able to play the game. And it's something that I've always wanted. This is going back to where the name Legendary Neurotoxin came from, that Legends of Might and Magic game. I really want to bring back that community there. We still hang out on Facebook, still a lot of us around. So it's something where I just kind of want to rebuild the game. There's 6 classes plus a 7th like VIP class that has super armor and the Excalibur, and they're just awesome badass status. And it's something that somebody could actually rebuild. We could actually be rebuilding the entire game, all the levels, all the features and stuff. And even it would make more sense in Landmark, because as instanced arenas, it makes sense that it's just that claim where that map is at. And then when you go outside of that map, it's just the rest of the open world where the monsters and everything else exist. It's a game that I basically really want to be able to kind of leverage the idea and bring the community back and put it here. It's a community game. Basically, after 3DO launched it, 6 months later, they went bankrupt. So we were basically the ones supporting the game ever since. That was the first place where I ever made maps for a 3D game or any game in general. The first kind of modding experience I had. So, it's a game that's always kind of special to me. And I'd love to see about really being able to bring it back in all of its items and all of its features.
I don't see why not. Sounds like a cool
Modding
plan.
would be fantastic.
Once it's optimized.
Yeah, let's just-
once local hosting is possible.
Once
know-
my game stops stuttering, I don't care what they do.
But the ability, being able to cloud host, host externally modded content, then becomes monetized system. Which
Oh no, I
people
wouldn't
would
want to do it like that. I would want to have it in game, being able to use story bricks and item customization, actually have it things that are basically claim based.
Okay, so you want to accentuate claim-based differences, where I want to mitigate claim-based differences. Is that where
Ready, fight.
Is that where we diverge here?
It's something where it's you would know what it is when you go up to it. It would say, custom rule set versus, standardized rule set. That's more what I would be looking for, and then you'd be
I
able
would
to
love
join
for that to
from
be
there.
instanced. I like the idea, but when I'm walking around the world, man, get that crap out of my world. Or the world is not the game. Either the world is the game, or the instances are the game. It can't be both. And
Why not?
WoW's done a great job of making a good world game and a great instanced game, but they are not the same thing.
Truth, because I just picking it back up. If you're either questing through stuff to gain levels, or you're done, doing dungeons.
Sitting in
it
your
seems
garrison waiting for your thing to pop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
But
running in circles
that-
around Zatch
there's one
waiting
reason.
for your timer to
There's
pop.
one
Nope,
reason for
Shet's
that.
dead.
That's because they removed they kind of killed world PvP, and because they made the
They
dungeon
didn't kill
finder.
World PvP. It's just I'm not on a world
It doesn't
PvP
matter.
server.
It doesn't matter why. They just saw that their
Well-
open world questing was fantastic, so they accentuated it, and their instance dungeon crawling was fantastic, so they accentuated that too. They grew both separately, and
A lot
there's
of-
that much intertwining.
A lot of my favorite times in WoW were actually getting to the instanced content in the open world. Because I don't
But
know
that
if you
was
guys
killed by fast travel. That was killed
Yeah.
by
Right.
summoning.
And that's what I'm
stones.
saying.
That
They-
wasn't killed by anything
that's-
else, really.
by making the game
And, yeah,
McDonald's
exactly.
That was
on the
gone
computer,
in 2005.
and that's
2006 when they nerfed Black Temple Attunement.
I know, man. I'm so still shed a tear every day for all of the how easy they made all of that shit. Ugh.
Remember when you had to get 8 of your friends to even get into Karazhan? You needed to key all of them?
Wait, Karazhan was what patch was that?
That was
Kara was the
original
first dungeon
Burning
of BC.
Crusade patch.
Oh, I didn't play Burning Crusade. I played vanilla.
All right, before Wrath of the Lich King, all attunement got nerfed, right?
Yeah.
So,
Onyxia.
Before it was like WildStar, where
Blackwing
WildStar
Lair.
takes you like days and like weeks or whatever, as a lot of shit to the, a lot of crap to the attunement. But that's how it used to be in WoW, where you had to do all these large amounts of quests and everything to get a key so you could go up and do the second part of Karazhan. Actually, so you could open the front door of Karazhan. But they don't have any of that kind of stuff anymore. Though they've gotten it back a little bit to gating some of the things. Like, you can't queue in Dungeon Finder as a DPS warrior for a tank slot so you can get in quicker and then completely destroy the whole instance for everyone else. You have to do certain things to do each spec now, but it's
So
easy.
that's why I'm saying though, because these things exist, and look, I mean, I'm passionate about it. I love that time, and I think a lot of people are. I think that there is some value in I think that games can have that in general, but there needs to be a bridge to get you from one to the other without making you just lose the immersion. And to me, that immersion, that bridge was always the world PvP, because no matter where you went, you knew that you had to plan that shit. You had to, it took effort. It wasn't just click a button, like it wasn't like a MOBA basically. I mean, like a UI with an instance list. I mean, it was a real part of the game, and I feel like if that's the case, if that's in there, then I think that they can. But otherwise, I would say I don't want like a game where you click on a list to jump into a bunch of instances. It takes immersion out.
kills community too.
Yeah.
So,
Completely.
what I was trying to, before we move on to Viz with his what I'm thankful for and what I wish for, what I was trying to say is that I feel like and I never got this, we never boiled this down so far, that what Neuro and I want differently is that Neuro wants to promote instanced behavior because of the customization and because of the freedom that it and just like what WoW did in Wrath of the Lich King and later, where they said, you know what, in an instance we can give people entire encounters that mean that they need to be in a vehicle, which means they need a whole different skill set. This is exactly what Legendary and Neurotoxin loves and wants in video games.
I also want PlanetSide 2.
What I want is to never feel like I crossed that threshold.
Dude, this is like a political campaign. This is awesome.
Don't come to my territory. That's the other thing.
Still,
Like,
you
But that's the
friends
beauty of Landmark,
and
is you
it's
could
still-
have that. You could
That's-
have islands that are restricted from ever having instance things. You could also have islands that allow instance things.
Ultimately, I think
Yep.
choice is the thing that we all want. The ability to choose whether we and have different servers, like you just said.
And that is the beauty of not being bound to a server.
Right.
So you can have multiple servers, because they already said they can change the rules of the servers. They're not giving us that ability, but they
We were
can do it.
actually talking
So-
on live feature rant about the ability for people, if they're like, it's we don't know what they're gonna do, but are they gonna create the ability for people to group? Since basically you're gonna friends list based off of, you'll have they've already said the way they want to do friends is, similar to the battle tag system. Basically, everybody can have potentially similar names, but you'll be unique based on your actual SOE, your Sony Online tag that will be hidden to people unless you want them to know it. Now, if you do like that, it seems like they would have a system where you could cross server grouping, possibly like WoW does, and then when you do that, I don't know, it opens up some crazy doors. So, but yeah, I wonder if they're gonna do that, because that definitely changes things too. But not
Yeah.
we should probably not
So,
even start that conversation.
Giovanni, before we figure out how we're going to give Noodlecat some real time on this show, Gio, what are you thankful for and what do you wish for?
All right. Well, I think about this every time I go on the forums or listen to anybody complain. I'm thankful that for the first time in years, a company has grown the balls to create a next-gen game. I think that people they're scared, they're afraid, and I mean like a triple A. A lot of companies have been scared, especially with the MMO market like really tanking. I have like numbers that will show MMOs are not in right now, but SOE is taking a chance. They're saying, we know that there's a committed group of people out there who want this, and they're going to try to give it to us, and they're going to try to do it in a way that we've never had it before, which will actually which will hopefully make it actually fun. So I'm thankful that SOE has balls, essentially.
So confirmed, you like men.
Anyway, and then what I wish for is, I would really like a comprehensive. I just want depth. I know that that's really general, but to explain, like, for example, I want my mount to be grown from a fucking like a small thing. Like I want it to like be born, and then maybe I don't have to like do too much, but I could watch it grow, and it takes time to develop my mount, and it has stats, and I want my armor, I want my weapons to have hilts and blades, and different parts to it and put on to change the look. I want the game to be intense. I want there to be a lot to do. I want there to be a lot of detail that will allow me. Sorry, I just saw Geo's thankful SOE has balls at the.
Are you talking Next or Landmark?
I'm talking Landmark, EverQuest Next. And I mean, I don't see any reason why Landmark can't have some of this stuff too. I know they said, for example, like they've talked about it. I heard like no farming in Landmark, the ability to like grow crops. I've heard that. I don't know if it's the truth, but I've heard that. And that kind of stuff I think would be great in Landmark. It's a sandbox
I heard
MMO.
them say that they like the concept, but they don't know how they do it.
Right.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, but everything else they
say no about something, just more. Yeah, we're gonna put that over here and think about it at a later date.
Because there's a lot more to it than like they don't want to. I know they don't want to spend any time putting things into the game, working on them that don't serve a purpose. So in order to make farming be purposeful, you have to add some type of hunger mechanic or some type of use for crops, other than
Crafting,
just being
cooking.
some. Yeah. So
But
I mean,
that stuff has to have a use then too.
I mean, it's not
Yeah.
like
It's
you
probably
could
more they're
tie it to
worried
health.
about the game being an actual game before doing anything else.
But most of the things they say, it's like we've asked some things like where they talk about how they want it, or they're gonna, but like when we ask them like when, it's like, oh well, this is like really far down the line. Like this is not even, like first we have to do so much stuff. But this is like that. This kind of thing is something that I feel like, or from what I've heard, again, like this is just from, I feel like I saw it on forum posts. Don't quote me, but I feel like they kind of, it sounded like from what I read that they were not like even like considering it really. It was more like it seems like way too out there. But I could be wrong. Someone in chat, if you guys know that post, please.
It probably isn't something they're considering at all right now,
Right.
because there's just too many other things they have to do. I mean, I look at their list and I know a lot of we're supposed to have these things in a couple months, but I'm don't see this game being a full-fledged, legitimate, like self-sustaining game for at least another year and a half to 2 years. Because once we even have all of the stuff in, like Storybricks and stuff like that, we still need people to create everything and have a good base and a good, everyone knows about this person's dungeon or this person's PvP claim, and that's gonna take a lot of time to build up too. It's not just that they're gonna have all these things in and then poof, we have a game, which I
Right.
feel like a lot of people feel like it's gonna be that way, and it's not.
Well, I
When
feel like
Landmark
it'll
actually
be.
gets when Landmark actually gets a chance to diverge from EverQuest Next, when EverQuest Next is actually released, and this is something we've talked about a lot, and you see all the nodding heads. That's when Landmark in its own development will be able to take off in a different direction.
Yeah.
And EverQuest Next will, there'll still be contests and stuff you'll be able to do in Landmark for EverQuest Next, I'm sure, but it's not going to be, the foundation for EverQuest Next being developed anymore. It'll be finally, far enough along that they'll have fully divergent development. Maybe they'll give us the ability to create our own story bricks, or not story bricks, keywords, for example. Every account gets one or something, and you get to make your own, the neurotoxin ability or whatever.
But we
Yeah,
also
but at
need
the
the things
same-
in for people to create stuff with too. I mean,
At the-
not
at-
just build.
At the same time, there needs to be a way to gauge difficulty. Like the problem with that system is if if succeeding at finishing your dungeon doesn't yield a reward that allows you to progress or do something else. I know that it wasn't you, Vel. It was actually someone on. It was Lock Six Time who wrote a thing about about progression and being outdated recently, and I kind of disagree. That I like knowing that I have some sort of path or some at least basic tiering system or some way of knowing that my character has grown stronger. I feel like a tough guy now. Whatever it takes. But when it's all user-driven content, how do we then correlate it back into a greater system? How do we say, well, I made this awesome thing Noodlecat made, and I completed the awesome thing Noodlecat made, and I did it a couple times. I got the right drop, and I've got this item. Kind of what makes WoW progression great. That you need that piece from there, which not only teaches you skills as you work through it and how to play, but also gives you the mathematical upgrade that you need to move on. And when we talk about only having user-generated content, then it becomes, well, we have a scale that we want to make things from easy to unfair, easy to impossible. And you have no idea when you go in, and you have nothing to measure that against, and no way of knowing. And
That's the fun.
things
You
that-
just run in and die.
yeah, but
I
if
like-
you run in and die, you won't go back.
Sog,
Well, then
I
the person needs
totally-
to adjust their stuff if someone's not running their things. Because if we have rewards on both ends, like, amount of people completing your thing or amount of, whatever, somehow there has to be a system that rewards both people. If no one's doing your thing and it doesn't be popular, then the person's probably going to adjust it. Unless they, get a kick out of newbies running in and dying, which some people do. But we can always tie things into, like, if they allow us to do custom rewards, like I can give someone a template of, this thing that I built in the dungeon they just completed, or a copy of, a pet version of a mob or something. I don't know. But I think there's ways to integrate something that could be considered progression without it actually being a linear progression or vertical progression. Actually,
Yeah.
would be
like
especially with achievements.
to kind of add on to what, or to kind of merging both of what you guys are saying. Like, I totally agree with what Sog is saying as far as understanding. Like for EverQuest Next, we know the Row song is going to be that sort of guide for the people that like to have a guide and know where they're going and where they're at in the whole grand scheme of things. But at the same time, Landmark is going to be a different game. It's not going to have the Row song necessarily, obviously. And the thing is, like, as much as we could argue about, this might not work or this might be bad, Minecraft stands as, like, the prime example that there's no progression whatsoever in that game. And it's, millions of people play it and love it. And it's all user-generated. Everything. All the
Well,
mods. All the games.
And there's no real restrictions on it either.
But that's not what SOE is trying to make here, as far as I can tell.
Right.
If that's what they're trying to make, then there have been so many wrong decisions made already.
Well, it's obviously not supposed to be a copy of Minecraft, but it's supposed to cater towards that, idea of people coming into a game. They have things to do. They can, role play with each other. They can, build together. They can do a lot of different things together. They don't necessarily have any end goal. They're just playing a game together that's fairly open-ended. You know, like Landmark obviously has, you know, with claim systems and different things, it has certain restrictions, but for the most part, it's generally an open-ended game. There's a lot you can do with it, and as we go forward in the future and they start doing more stuff, we're going to see even more to do with your friends in it, you know, that even Minecraft doesn't have. Like, you know, once the mods and PvE and AI comes in, that's something that Minecraft doesn't have unless you're a really good modder and coder and you know how to, you know, code in that type of stuff, which the average person doesn't. And Landmark tried to make that possible for the average person to create something unique that everybody can freeball with, I guess.
Can
my
that be
kitty.
done without private servers in a functional way where people enjoy the open world experience? If walking through a meaningless open world, like imagine if your computer operating system, that instead of clicking on icons to open up windows, imagine if you had to navigate a dangerous 3D space to get to that next program you wanted to run in your operating system. Imagine if you had to do that. Would you have that operating system? Maybe for 5 minutes of one day, one time.
I'd like that.
You'd try it out. That sounds real cool. Then you'd be like, I can't run Microsoft Word because I got shot 3 times. No, there are orcs in the way of Word. No, that's what we're talking about.
I think you just came up with like a multi-million-dollar game.
If we're talking about really making things that different and that special and separate, then the open world is worthless and it only gets in the way.
Well, that's why they have a claim system, and then that's why if we see any type of true meaning added to the open world, it's probably going to be in the form of alternate rule sets on islands where, you know, the whole island has a general set of different rules that allows them to do.
So then how is that monetarily viable as opposed to making people host their own things? You know, Minecraft has
both,
that.
but I mean,
Minecraft has it right already. People pay to host Minecraft servers. Hosting it yourself means that you want to control gameplay and you want to control a meta economy within the gameplay. There is no value to opening up gameplay like that unless it's instanced and can only be accessed through their servers. I just feel like what
We haven't seen it before.
here
We haven't seen
Minecraft
it
does right, and it works because it's not hosted by SOE, because it's hosted by people who want to host those servers.
I guess my final end point, basically, I'm not going to talk anymore after this, but basically, it's we've seen Minecraft. We know what Minecraft is, and you know it's a successful thing. We've seen MMOs, you know, and MMOs are successful. I mean, we can all say that over the last decade they've probably been declining, but MMO as a genre has been a successful genre. So we've seen these two things, and what we're seeing now is the potential infusion of these two concepts, and we've never seen something like this before, so we don't know exactly how much of this it's going to be or how much of that it's going to be. It's just going to be something we're going to have to see, and I'm sure they're playing it by ear a lot too. I'm sure they have a direction, but you know, they're probably trying to see how people take it to know what they really want to do with it, because remember, Landmark was not planned. This was something that came up on the path to EverQuest Next. They're like, wow, this can be its own game. We can monetize this. This can be something crazy good, and this just branched off. So this is a, you know, an infantile idea for them right now. It's just something that we, you know, it's going to be a waiting game. We're going to have to wait and see. But the good thing is we're in there now. Like we have their ears, you know, like they are listening to the community, you know, as we give them input. You know, they won't do exactly what we say because they have their own, you know, agenda, and they understand business models and marketing and stuff in different ways. They want to go in a certain way. Anyways, all that's irrelevant. The point I'm making is really just that, you know, we're going to have to wait and see and contribute as much as we can towards curving it in a way that we think is going to be successful and fun for everybody, that's going to work, that we enjoy personally and that others will enjoy. That's basically what it boils down to. It's just so early on. We don't know if what they're doing is going to work or not yet for Landmark. And maybe
They're
for
trying to create kind of like virtual reality, but
I mean,
making
for-
your own little world, your own little games. Like, I mean, Dave said it before. They want you to be able to make your world and basically your game within their game. So
but that leads to
whether or
talk-
not they're doing it correctly, I think it's too hard to tell for me right now. Just because there's so little that's been developed, I don't even know how we're gonna make dungeons and stuff other than some of the things with story bricks in it. Griffin, stop it, please. Sorry.
Cat aggro.
Dog aggro, actually.
Oh,
Or the dog aggroed the cat.
Storybricks OP. Storybricks is real life. That's it.
I'm gonna make a Griffin boss, and he's gonna be the hardest boss in the game. That's what's gonna happen.
And that's this is I think for my mentality of all this, like I think having this in EverQuest Next is absolutely out of the question. I mean, that wouldn't make any sense. I don't think having like so much instancing for like of customized content. I mean, that won't be in EverQuest Next. That's not scheduled. So, but as far as Landmark is concerned, I mean, that's something that I've always been hearing about is. Like I've been hearing so long about people who are going to, let's say, make a dungeon. I mean, that dungeon story is not going to have anything to do with anything. It's just random. It's going to have no connection to the outside world at all. So, I mean,
unless you make more dungeons associated with it, like I'm planning to do.
well, I mean, sure, but what I'm trying to say is that it won't be connected to the world, like Sog was saying. I mean, the world is going to be
Each person's
independent,
their own developer.
and that's the idea behind the whole game. I mean, that's at least what I've been led to believe from the beginning. So, I guess my question is, like, why, if it's already going to be like that, then why try to like put brakes on it? Just let them go wild. I mean, it's going to already have that disconnect.
Because they
Yeah,
wanted to combine it with testing the open world features of EverQuest Next. It could be that open world goes away in Landmark.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, that's it, because the crazy, it's just, what the open world feels like right now is like a, not, I don't know.
It's a
good way to
wasteland.
explain this. Well, it's a portal. It's basically an open world meeting place where people don't necessarily do too much meaningful together. You might go harvest resources together. They're going to try and add more things that you can do together. But for the most part, all the meaningful things that happen in the game happen on your claims right now. Or at least that's what it sounds like the goal is, to be that, all with all the player created content and stuff like that. So the open world, it serves as nothing else than a lobby. It's basically like a lobby where you happen to be gathering resources. So maybe that's their way to cause people to force to socialize. I don't know, but right now it's definitely weird. It doesn't.
That's why it'd be cool to have different server types. You have the server type for the artists who don't want any of their stuff ever touched by anyone else, and then you have another server type where you can all build together. Barring that optimization works and that we can actually have an island that's full of things that aren't one claim space, so that way you have those different types of gameplay. Because I mean, as someone who is an artist, I mean, I wouldn't enjoy if they took away my ability to place a claim, because I wouldn't want someone to come by and smash something that I was working on for so long. But I'd also like to be able to go out to the world and build something and I don't know if it'd be role playing, but play the game that way as well. Set down something that I specifically designed that you could use as a siege thing or whatever. But that's why I hope we get different types of islands, or different types of rules.
I think the key thing that we don't know about the claim system is once they get to the point where they've talked about people being able to collaborate to build cities together at some point. Once optimization is there. So what we don't know about the claim system is if it gets to that point, maybe you can have an entire island that gets taken over by a group of like-minded people where all their claims are interlinked, and all of a sudden the whole open world of that island is editable by everybody. We just don't know how much depth there's going to be to the claim system other than what we currently see, which, obviously what we currently see is not going to facilitate that, but it could, depending on how they choose to do, how they choose to modify the buffers and all these other things.
I remember way back in, it was either the end of alpha or very early beta. That question was asked to Omid when he was, still the brand manager, and his response was, what they would like to see is that we are able to have as many claims as we want, and our limiting cap is how much of whatever resource it'll end up being that we need to pay with will be our limit. If you can't, make enough in a 24-hour period of time to pay for that stuff, then that's your limit. So if you get, a whole guild together, then they could make something that's, a whole island size when you have people dedicated to only gathering and dedicated to building or whatever.
For sure, for sure, for sure.
I hope they still go that way though.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. They've talked about like being able to just make larger builds, just having guild claims or whatever, and being able to have space larger than the 3x3 that we have right now. I mean, they want to have probably larger than 3x3 that they have right now for us. I'm wondering if it's going to be something where we'll eventually be able to build all the way up to the claim boundary, and then anything, where we're overlapping with someone else, it has to be something where you give them permissions or they give you permissions over the shared space to be able to work it out. Just the shared space, not even the the full build. And that would be a way to potentially allow players to cover an entire island, even going all the way up into the sky, and potentially further down below, with the content that they want to build up on that island. And it's just a matter of the gigantic fee to maintain it. Of course, if it's something that's that big and awesome and amazing, SOE might be like, this is so cool, we're just gonna make this island a thing. All the maintenance is permanently paid.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Because they want to support us making our own games in Landmark. They've said that's a major thing they want to do.
They haven't.
Yeah.
They have not made a single thing to support that sentiment.
Well,
Right.
I mean, the
They
thing is,
haven't made
I know
anything.
in the next
It's
6
just what
weeks
they're
it'll be different.
saying.
In the
Well,
next 6 weeks, it'll be different.
yeah, we don't have anything to create. I mean, all we can do is literally make shapes. That's it right now. I mean, like there's no, of course they haven't given us anything. They haven't given, I mean, that's kind of like what we're all not upset about, but like, we're all waiting. We're all excited for things to come in. That's what we're, so I think, but
Considering how long it took to get dual core or not dual core, multi-threading and things like that, they probably have no clue when they can give us more of anything when
Yeah.
it comes to claims or allowing people to stick together. Because remember, they did copy the huge city that lethality did, and they can still place that down and check, how optimization is, and it probably is still pretty crappy.
But we've also heard in the last few weeks, like, things that we talk about for long term, like vehicles and quite a few other, like, awesome features. They've said they haven't even started the R&D project to know if it's feasible to add into the game. So when Jeff Butler and Dave Georgeson
that.
have been talking about vehicles and animating voxels, we have information saying they don't even know how they're going to add it. So, yes, they want to add it. Yes, anything that you want, people want to add into Landmark. This is what we know. We know that if you say, hey, I'd really like to have this, somebody says, yeah, we talked about that we'd really like to have that too. The fact is, they haven't done the R&D, and they haven't done the cost to benefit, revenue earning analysis. That I said that all wrong, and I know because I'm drinking whiskey, but that's okay. The point is that what we hear right now, this isn't a negative, it's a positive with a slightly negative backbone that says, if you say we want this, they say we want this too. And it's easy to say that when you haven't even come close to knowing if you can implement it or if you could make money doing it.
Well,
And they don't have the answers to either of those things. So we're speculating, and that's great. That's why this show lives.
Yeah, but we're circling back around to the whole kind of one thing we talked about, I don't know, last week or the week before, where, you know, Landmark is not going to really see it's not really going to surface on its own until we get past EverQuest Next and that launches and they have the, you know, financial income and backing to start, you know, expanding different things again. Because like right now, all we've seen out of SOE, you know, technically, other than these 2 games that are in development, is kind of a shrinking, you know, shrinking of the staff, a shrinking in titles. You know, we haven't seen them expanding yet because they don't have the revenue to do that. And EverQuest Next is, you know, the big, and H1Z1. Those are the 2 next big, you know, money makers for them. And once they get that, then only then will we actually get to see any of our speculation start to be right or wrong, or even make any sense at all.
I mean, the only things we can technically be certain with is the things that are slated within the next like month or 2 that are on the blueprint, and those aren't
can we
even
even be certain of this?
guaranteed for the time that they place it as. But
Mostly guaranteed.
it's fun to talk about the things that they want and that we want. And I mean, I'm looking at all this, as I said before, in year time frames, because that's what I know this is going to take, not in the short term ever, and not even in the like it's guaranteed, you know, thing. I mean, I know that the multi-claim gilding kind of system is something that they want and have actively been trying to figure out, so that's something I think that's a little bit more solidified than some of the other systems we talk about. But you know, it's still fun to think about things, because what we think of is what might change their mind for things.
So I would actually say it's kind of interesting. Almost every sandbox I've seen, it's been from the first time we got a chance to play it to 2 years later, when it actually really has a lot of the awesome, amazing features. And this is everyone from indie to AAA. A lot of indies, but also some AAAs.
And that's
Yeah.
very true. It's very true. And that's what I've been saying since the beginning. Like, everyone's like, "Oh my god, we're gonna have all this stuff by July," and I'm like, "You guys are crazy. You think that this is gonna happen? It's not. It's not." And yeah, what Buzz said is exactly correct. Unless you're in the meetings with them, we don't know. I applaud that they are open and they've been trying to, you know, incorporate the community, but like I've said, you know, we aren't privy to probably a good 90% of the stuff that they know. You know, they give us what they can give us without jeopardizing the whole project, because, well, as we know, you know, gaming community can be a little volatile sometimes.
So this is a question that's gone on since online gaming began. What do you guys think about self-hosted versus company-hosted? SOE has said they're going to company host Landmark. Minecraft is hugely successful user server hosted. Landmark has a lot of similarities to Landmark, and we could see a lot of benefits from being able to, you know, server side mod and do some.
I can answer this one.
What
really,
I'm gonna continue.
Okay,
if you play Smite or League of Legends or you play any MOBA, it's server hosted. But when I played Return to Castle Wolfenstein, everything was privately hosted. Do we want company or private hosting for Landmark?
Well, the real big issue here isn't necessarily what we want to do. It's, you know, what are they going to do, because why? And it's really a security thing, because since people are actually paying real money into this, you know, they're using the Station Core store and that kind of stuff, having the company hosted server protects their investment. Whereas, like, as me personally, who's experienced being on Minecraft servers where, like, I played with my brothers and, you know, they've actually paid, you know, to get, you know, progression or different things in different Minecraft things, and there's no protection for that at all whatsoever, and your money doesn't can be, taken away or not matter, on the whim. Whereas if you have something that's company hosted, everything's protected. It limits the ability for hacking and all kinds of things. So I don't know.
It lets them monetize Player Studio.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit and say that it's a Player Studio, although potentially could be a good monetization plan for EQ Next. Let's say that that's not already a given. Let's say there are other options.
Player
There
Studio
are
needs a lot of help
hybrids out
before it
there.
gets to
There are.
monetization.
It's already been. I'm just saying, we're a speculative talk show here. We talk about concepts that work better in one way or another, and I'm not sure. I like the idea of it all being kept in house. I like the idea of being able to explore these alternative monetization systems like Player Studio, which I think is a great idea if everything is built around it correctly. But if we talk about Landmark being nothing but too much light totes here, but if it's really just about what players make and what player experiences can give to other people, then it's better as something that's outsourced for other people to host, and they don't have to pay to host it, and they charge for, they charge the server for incremental downloads, whatever they need to do. But if we're talking about a game where a Player Studio system works, then we want it all kept in-house. I understand the security, I understand all of that, but what do we want out of the game? If we want customization, if what we want is we want to run the game,
We want everything. That's what's the problem.
we want everything. And if we want everything, we pay to run servers for ourselves. And we're given the tools to do that. We can't do that with Landmark. That's not where
I see Landmark getting a single player add-on
Creative
to
mode.
it in the future. Yeah, a creative mode that, on your own computer, even offline, you can log into your own local thing and it operates on the same rules that are the current patch update or whatever. And, maybe you can invite friends into that if you're online, maybe not, I don't know. But I see them having, these tools are way too good to only restrict to online play. I see it being in the future. It's just a long ways off.
One of the other things that kind of falls out in the argument with Player Studio is that there's also other features that we don't have available yet. The ability to take the economy for one thing, but the ability to take a voxel creation, turn it into a mesh, and scale it into the form of a prop, and sell that on Player Studio. Or as well, and I believe they've actually mentioned this, the ability to create Storybricks interactions and then put those on Player Studio. We don't even know what everything is that we're actually going to be able to, create in Landmark and put on Player Studio. So it's really hard to say whether we want the player hosted versus the in-house, and what kind of features we'll be able to come along with it, because we're still, once again, it is a speculative show. We really don't know what we don't know about, what's actually going to be in Player Studio. They might not even know exactly. There might be things that they don't even realize they want to have. Maybe vehicles made with voxel prop combinations will be a very special, specific thing they're going to want to do. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we don't even have all the stuff we need for the features that are already in the game. Like, Player Studio, for me, and I know a lot of other people, can't even see that as a thing yet, because we don't have the tools that we need. Not like the building tools, but things like being able to see our past sales, but, how many people are buying something right now, like all that kind of stuff. We need that kind of thing to create an economy, which would then tell you if we want the protection on that side, or we want it to go, if being more creative is better, put it off onto to localhost. But it's hard to say because there's just so many things that aren't in the game yet. And I think for right now, it's better just to keep it with them until, we have a solid game, and then maybe have other things or add-ons or things that you can do that are outside of the company host. At least that's what I would want to see. So.
All right, we are 10 minutes past our usual close time. Let's open up some questions. And I know, Noodle, we speculative talk drives those of us who are here, including everyone, and yourself, to talk too much. But we've talked over you more than we should have, and I don't feel like we've been good hosts. What in the next 5 minutes or so, talk about what you think about Landmark, who you are, where you want it to go, how you feel like transitioning into EverQuest Next, because we're big into EverQuest Next here. We love the story, we love everything. We're gonna give you a little bit of free roll time, and then we're gonna start our goodbyes.
All right. Well, I guess for me, as the biggest thing is, I just want them to fix my computer so it'll work. Like, everyone here has probably heard me complain multiple times because the issue I have is not frames, it's stutters, which is why I haven't been in Landmark all that much, because it's just, every 5 steps I hit like 10 frames or 5 frames, so it's a little frustrating. But I've been here since alpha, and I've always enjoyed the game. There's certain things that I think maybe they should have done a little differently. Some of the contest stuff got a little weird. There's things like I was talking about with Player Studio that I wish were implemented at the same time because I feel like they were needed. But in general, I like the direction that they are going with a game that is wholly creative, and not just creative in building something, but creative in the sense to bring every person together who has something to give, like writing or scripting or art or whatever. That's what drew me to this game to begin with when I found out about it. So that's pretty much all I do when it is build. I do a little bit of PvP, and I will be doing more PvP and stuff once I actually can run okay in the game. But as far as where they're going, I'm one of those people that kind of likes to sit back and enjoy the ride of what they're doing and what they're planning, because I don't necessarily know how everything turns out, but that also doesn't mean I don't give my opinion on what things should be done or shouldn't be done. But I also like to see how things unfold. So I don't know, that's pretty much what I am in Landmark. So I am the Noodle Cat.
I've got to put out a public service announcement, and I'm going to follow up with you after the show and see if this is what it is. If you're having any problem with Landmark, even before the multi-threading, but especially after it came in,
It's the first optimization patch of that month.
going
That's what killed it.
Yeah, going into your settings and finding your you can only do this in the folder. You can't actually do this in game. Your frame rate. Set your target frame rate from the default 250 or default 1000 that it was set to if you installed Landmark a while back and you've just been patching since then. Set it to 30. That fixed it for me. That fixed it for Defense. It fixed it for a lot of people. So I would definitely recommend trying that out, and I'll follow up with you, like I said, after the show and see if we'll be able to fix that up.
The Ewok. Just like in the corner of my screen here.
All right, I'll start the goodbyes. Wicket here will start the goodbyes. We know all of you saw Star Wars teaser trailer, and there were no Ewoks in it. Yeah, that's right. Wicket's giving them the finger. Yeah, there should have been those. But tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, on my Twitch channel, I'm Sog, by the way, we're doing a team up build, and we're going to be raising money for Extra Life, raising money for kids, and it's going to be a ruined subway station. We're going to do a modern ruin, not a sci-fi ruin, not a fantasy ruin. We're going to do a modern ruin. It's going to be
Silent
a
Hill?
ruined subway station. And I put on my website at sog.tv. You can check it out and see the reference pictures. I will be awake and ready to go at 8 o'clock. We'll be going for about 10 hours, and I hope to see you there. Velix, go on. You're next.
Well, nothing super new for me, just new column starting up on 10 Ton, where it's kind of going to be my new home as EQ Hammer kind of does its thing. I'll be posting some stuff there, but we're kind of looking at how that's going to go in the future. So nothing really new there, but I believe we will be doing Loregasm as well in the near future. I don't know, Gio, if you want to, are we going to do that as of tomorrow, starting back up with Stars of Home, or are we going to do one more week? Is Gio here? We are probably going to be one more week.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about it off the stream and then we'll
Yes.
figure it out. So we'll take one more week.
Yeah, we'll take one more week because we really want to make sure that when we hit this thing again that it's going to be great for everybody. So we want to do a good job on that. So look for that, though, in the future. Probably next Saturday will be the very first return of Loregasm.
We're trying to keep the mysticism like it's a dragon. You know, it's a thing that exists, but it doesn't really exist. Illuminati.
And that's
All
it.
right.
Yep.
So, on top of all the other shows, Live Feature Rant, Dead Feature Rant, Content and Creation, Who's Gaming Now, Evening Show, I'm actually making a very rare appearance. You don't see me doing a lot of charity stuff, and I don't know why. I should probably do more of it. I'm going to be doing kind of a little bit more off the tail end of the Who's Gaming Now Naomi House Foundation charity thing. I think I butchered that, but we're going to be doing a big old 12-hour marathon starting really early tomorrow. In fact, I'm not 100% sure about the time, but it's there at the link. Our buddy Carl Mundo is going to be starting it off, and it's going to be going 12 plus hours, all sorts of giveaways. I'm going to take over at some point. I think Kremchek might also be taking over at some point. Should be a lot of fun. So definitely come through for that. You know, if you aren't going to one of the other many awesome streams going on tomorrow, because I know there's a lot of awesome streams going on tomorrow. And other than that,
Multi-Twitch is for.
yes, it is. I'm going to send it over to you, Gio.
Well, really quickly, Noodle, before I close this out, was there anything that you have going on that you wanted to talk about in the events, or?
I'm still working out my work schedule since I'm still in training, but I hopefully within the next week or so we'll get back into actually streaming, at least like on the weekends and stuff. I know I've been kind of absent and disappeared for a while, which I apologize for, but it's been weird having a job and that's not just myself, because I've been self-employed in my own business for the last 5 years, so it's a little odd getting used to that again.
Cool. Anything
know the
special? No? Okay.
No,
Well, then
nothing special. I'm just a noodle cat. I'm already special.
Noodle Cat, exactly. Noodle Cat is she chills out here a lot, and she's actually one of the channel mods, and I love her very much for that. So thanks so much, Noodle. And of course, we appreciate you guys coming out tonight. I'm going to be doing Friday Night Fight Club with my friend Neverett. Last week was actually one of the best weeks we've had in a while. So we had a big turnout, and that's going to be starting at 8 o'clock Pacific. So in about 40 minutes or so. If you guys are interested, we have cash prizes, $25 in station cash. It's super easy to join up, like no entrance fee, nothing like that. You just come in, have a good time, and have a chance to win some cool prizes. So that's going to be happening. Like Velix said, Loregasm will hopefully be happening sometime soon. TM. And I went out to the bar with Skylatron last night. That was awesome. That's about, so
Fun stuff.
yeah, that has nothing to do with the future, but
Did
that
you
was
have
really
blue
cool.
drinks?
I told her we couldn't have blue drinks. Anyway,
Oh, damn.
guys, we're gonna be heading out. Did we have a raid target?
Oh, we need a raid. I'll get that going. 1 second.
Cool
Yeah.
deal. Well,
Yeah.
while we're figuring that out, I guess
There's nobody else streaming Landmark right now. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like hopping back on in a little bit, and like I said, we're gonna be doing Friday Night Fight Club. So that's gonna be in Landmark. If you guys want to just, I'll keep the stream up, and you guys can just hang out here while we get that set up and listen to cool music.
I do have
Sounds
one
good.
potential option. Has been a Landmark fan for a while. Playing Construction Simulator. Dark.
Oh, Dark Lord Ace, yeah.
How about we go visit Ace with Construction Simulator? Are you okay with
Yeah.
that, Gio?
Let's
Oh
do it.
yeah, if there's somebody out there, let's do it.
Yeah, he could use a few more
I didn't know
viewers
Dark Lord
right
started
now.
streaming. Dark Lord's been around for a while. Very,
Yeah.
very long while in Landmark.
He's a great guy. He's played a lot of spin tires, and he likes his hardcore strategy.
Ram, as for my regular stream, the 8th I have a doctor's appointment, which hopefully means I will be able to get my medications that I've been off for about 4 or 5 months now, and it's part of the reason why I'm not doing so well doing both streaming and work. So hopefully after that it'll be regular, and I'll be able to get the stuff that I need.
Hooray!
Yay! All right, cool. Well, thanks, Noodle, for coming on with us today. We had a great time. Thanks to all the awesome hosts who have lots of awesome opinions and some not so awesome ones, but we don't talk about those. We leave them for before the show. Either way, I love you guys, and I will see you guys soon. Thanks for coming to Theory Forge Friday.
All right, we'll see
you later, everybody.
back
Bye.
for Fight Club.
Yep.